Good evening. Would like to call the Wilson School Board meeting of Monday, November 21st, 2016 to order. Mrs. Raffoff, roll call, please.
Dr. Shimolevsky.
Here.
Mr. Ehrlich.
Here.
Mr. Hart.
Here.
Mr. Hunt.
Here.
Mr. Martin.
Here.
Mr. Metzger.
Here.
Mr. McReed.
Here.
Mrs. Reed.
Here.
Mr. Wolf.
Here.
9 present, 1 absent.
Thank you. Will you please rise for the posting of the colors? Please post the colors. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order, arms, close verse, march. Left face, forward, march.
Please be seated. Mr. Moravich,
Public participation. There's 2 opportunities for the public to address the board. The first is on agenda items, which is immediately before the agenda. The second is on non-agenda items, which is at the end of the meeting. It is a 3-minute opportunity pursuant to board policy and the Sunshine Law, and is not question and answer, but instead is an opportunity to provide comment on matters that are before or may come before the board.
thank you. Are there any items for public participation?
There are none.
Oh, yes, thank you. This evening, prior to tonight's board meeting, we had executive session where there were some HR, human resource issues that were discussed. There were no votes or decisions reached. Are there any communications?
There are none.
Under Wilson Good News, first of all, congratulations to Elizabeth Burkhart. She received the Society of Health and Physical Education Teacher of the Year. She is now in the running for the National Teacher of the Year, so congratulations to Elizabeth Burkhart. Also, congratulations to the Wilson High School Marching Band. They placed 3rd at their most recent band competition, scoring a 95.2, which is the highest score received since the early 1980s. And congratulations to Anthony Fiore, grade 4 at Cornwall Terrace. He was named the Youth Ambassador for Keystone Military Stockings for Soldiers program. First of all, tonight we're going to have a presentation by Herbine & Company on our audit report. And Chris Tertel is going to make that presentation.
Good evening,
Chris.
everyone. My name is Chris Tertel. I'm a partner with Herbine & Company, a regional CPA firm here based out of Reading, Pennsylvania. And just going to take a minute to recap for you the 2016 audit of the Wilson School District financial statements. We discussed earlier tonight actually with the Finance Committee in detail the statements, so I'm going to just take a couple minutes tonight and give it a highlight, so to speak. First and foremost, we have an unmodified opinion on the statements, so it's the cleanest opinion we can give as auditors. A modified opinion means we add little to no adjustments, and the numbers that you receive on a monthly basis are good for your decision-making capabilities. Overall, the general fund had some very minor variances this year, budget to actual. We were able to transfer about $2.5 million from the general fund over to the capital projects fund at year end, and that leaves the capital projects fund with about $11 million worth of fund balance for future maintenance projects and capital projects. Overall, our general fund balance maintains at $10.3 million. The unassigned portion of that fund balance is $4.5 million, or approximately 4.8% of next year's budget, which is within your fund balance criteria of $3 million, of 3% of next year's budget. So we meet our minimum fund balance requirements. Our proprietary funds, we have 2, food service and childcare. Food service this year had a loss of about $77,000. Of that, part was for our new pension requirements. So when we make that adjustment out, just to stay consistent with other years, the loss was about $28,000 in food service this year. Childcare had a surplus of about $80,000. With the adjustment for the pension, again, to keep you on the same playing field, that actually brings that surplus up to $130,000 in childcare. So we continue to see strengthening in our childcare program, particularly at the revenue level, and controlling our expenditures, doing some projects over at Berkshire Heights, and really seeing that program taking off in the last couple of years. On the financial federal awards side, we audited the Title I program this year, and we had no findings, no significant deficiencies, material weaknesses, and internal controls. So that's a credit to your program coordinators, that we have a clean audit for our federal awards also. So overall, clean opinion on the financial statement, and also a clean opinion on the federal awards. So that's the cleanest opinions that we can give as auditors. And that's a commendation of both, again, your program staff on your federal programs and your financial staff. Christine and her staff do a wonderful job, and we commend the district for the wonderful job that they do. That's the brief synopsis for tonight. Any questions?
If not, thank you, Chris. And Christine, on behalf of the board, thank you for all the hard work that you and your staff do. It obviously is reflected in the report that Herbine has done, so thank you.
We also want to thank Christine and her staff for all of their support during our audit process. It's a very thorough process, and they take a lot of time out of their day doing their normal day-to-day responsibilities to help us out. So thank you. It's a pleasure being here, and look forward to seeing you in the future.
Thank you for coming, Chris. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from November 7th. Do I have a motion? Mr. Wolf, second. Dr. Chmielewski. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Next item is the treasurer's report.
Mr. President, I submit the following reports that were attached to our agenda: the treasurer's report, investment report, and general fund financial reports from the past month.
Thank you. Is there a second? Mrs. Reed, roll call, please.
Dr. Chmielewski.
Yes.
Mr. Hart.
Yes.
Mr. Hop.
Yes.
Mr. Martin.
Yes.
Mr. Metzger.
Yes.
Mr. Negrini.
Yes.
Mrs. Reed. Yes. Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Mr. Ehrlich.
Yes.
9 for, none against.
Payment of bills.
Mr. President, I submit we pay bills in the amount of $2,434,648.26 from the general fund, and in the amount of $238,606.15 from the capital reserve fund.
Do I have a second? Mr. Martin, roll call, please.
Mr. Hart.
Yes.
Mr. Hop.
Yes.
Mr. Martin.
Yes.
Mr. Metzger.
Yes.
Mr. Negrini.
Yes.
Mrs. Reed. Yes. Mr. Wolf. Dr. Chmielewski.
Yes.
Mr. Ehrlich.
Yes.
9 for, none against.
And the financial reports.
Mr. President, I submit that we accept the reports from October 2016 for the cafeteria account, child care, the activity accounts from Wilson West Southern Middle School, as well as the senior high school.
And do I have a second? Mr. Wolf, roll call, please.
Mr. Hop.
Yes.
Mr. Martin.
Yes.
Mr. Metzger.
Yes.
Mr. Negrini.
Yes.
Mrs. Reed. Yes. Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Dr. Chmielewski.
Yes.
Mr. Hart.
Yes.
Mr. Ehrlich.
Yes.
9 for, none against.
Under 4.0, 4.1, ratification, request permission to ratify the out-of-state overnight field trips as attached. Do I have a motion for approval? Dr. Chmielewski, second. Mr. Martin, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Superintendent's report, Mr. Baker.
Thank you. Before going to the motion, if I might, I just want to call attention to the JROTC event, which took place in our gymnasium a week ago, which was amongst the most outstanding events I've seen in a very, very long time. By our best guess, 700 veterans for Veterans Day were assembled there for a dinner and dance. A brigadier general oversaw the proceedings. I had a brief conversation with her, and her indication was that this was unequivocally the best veterans recognition anywhere in the area. And so just great work there. It was a fantastic event. That said, if I can move on to recommend the consolidation of the following into a single motion. Item 5.1, child rearing leave, 5.2, unpaid leave, 5.3, resignations, 5.4, change of status, 5.5, support staff, 5.6, substitute teachers effective 11/22 unless otherwise noted, and 5.7, extracurricular.
Thank you. Do I have a motion? Dr. Chmielewski, second. Mrs. Reed, roll call, please.
Mr. Martin. Yes. Mr. Metzger.
Yes.
Mr. Negrini.
Yes.
Mrs. Reed. Yes. Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Dr. Shimeleski.
Yes.
Mr. Hart.
Yes.
Mr. Hop.
Yes.
Mr. Ehrlich.
Yes.
9 for, none against.
Under consent items, accept with gratitude the following donation, a Bulldog acrylic painting given to the Wilson High School from our own Dr. Amy Flannery. Do I have a motion? Mr. Hop, second. Mrs. Reed, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Mr. Ehrlich, the painting is over there in the corner.
Okay,
That's the painting that will go down to the high school.
thank you. Do we know where it's going exactly? Very well done.
One
I
of
know.
our students here at the high school.
What?
That was one of the pieces of artwork here done by one of our high school students.
Excellent. Under Human Resources, item 7.1, request approval of the agreement and release. 7.2 is request permission to approve the superintendent's goals. 7.3, request permission to approve the MOU between the district and the WA regarding the Chinese language. And 7.4, request permission to ratify the appointment of Colonel Michael Dietrich, Senior Army Instructor, on a cost share basis with the Department of Army. Do I have a motion for approval? Mr. Hop, second. Dr. Chmielewski. Roll call, please.
Mr. Metzger.
Yes.
Mr. Negrini.
Yes.
Mrs. Reed. Yes. Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Dr. Shimeleski.
Yes.
Mr. Hart.
Yes.
Mr. Hop.
Yes.
Mr. Martin.
Yes.
Mr. Ehrlich.
Yes.
9 for, none against.
Under Pupil Services, 8.1, request permission to contract with New Story Wyomissing to provide educational services. 8.2, request approval of the affiliation agreement between Alvernia University and the Wilson School District for the 2016-2017 school year. Do I have a motion for approval? Dr. Chmielewski, second. Mrs. Reed, roll call, please.
Mr. Negrini.
Yes.
Mrs. Reed. Yes. Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Dr. Shimeleski.
Yes.
Mr. Hart.
Yes.
Mr. Hop.
Yes.
Mr. Martin.
No.
Mr. Metzger. Mr. Ehrlich.
Yes.
8 for, 1 against.
Under operations, 10.1 is requested to approve an additional $100,000 in capital reserve fund for Phase 1 of the Southern Middle School Stadium project. And 10.2 is request permission to use KPN for the upgrades for Phase 1 of the Southern Middle School Stadium upgrades. Mr. Negrini, do you want to discuss this?
Take a motion.
You want motion by Mr. Negrini, second. Mrs. Reed, further discussion?
Just as background, back in 2013, when the district went through the capital campaign project and redid Gursky Stadium and built the George Mack Field, Clark had given us an estimate to redo Southern track and bleachers over there at a cost of approximately $700,000. Some of those costs pertain to portable bleachers. In the meantime, the Facilities Committee had shown a commitment to providing equitable, essentially fields and buildings between the two middle schools. We've recently done a lot of improvements over at Southern, but one of the biggest improvements and therefore costs would have been this track. Recently, some additional costs have come in for that particular project that exceeded that original estimate of $700,000, some of which pertains to renovations of the bleachers and some other ADA accessibility requirements that would be needed for this track renovation. Therefore, earlier today, there was a finance and facilities meeting, and in an effort to move forward with the project so that the track at least could be completed by the end of the school year so that there would be no disruption to the beginning of the 2017 school year and the fall sports over there. It was recommended that the phase of the project be broken down into the track portion, and then a later facilities meeting, we would discuss different options for the bleachers over at Southern. So therefore, the additional $100,000 takes us to $800,000 approximately. The cost of the track itself was estimated to be about $725,000 with some additional planning. We felt safely with an approximate $800,000 to use KPN for this particular phase of the project and to get some additional costs for different options of the bleachers. So that essentially is an overall background of where we've been over the last several years to get to this point, so that looking from a taxpayer standpoint, looking from a student standpoint, looking from a community standpoint, that regardless of where anyone ends up going to school or moving into the district, that they would see equity in all of our facilities, all of our buildings between West and Southern. So we've gotten to this point and believe from a facility standpoint that this is the right time to move forward with this renovation project.
Are there any other comments? Mr. Martin?
Since we never really approved the first part of this, I think we should say that we're approving it not to exceed $800,000.
I think that's
Right.
Yeah, and again, as we were moving after this meeting and putting this on the agenda, I believe, relatively quickly, it's not to exceed $800,000 with that
When the
first
contract
phase
is finished.
of the project.
We have to approve the contracts anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what Mr. Moravich just said. It's going to have to come back anyway to approve the contract. But we still could put the amount in at this point, is that correct? Up to $800,000?
We'll know the exact amount.
Right.
Right, but not to exceed it.
Are there any other comments, discussions?
I just, I mean, I wholeheartedly support it. This is an issue that needs to get addressed. I mean, it's not just equity. I mean, when was the building open? Was it 1980?
71.
71, wow, I'm getting old. And probably the track in the mid-70s is the same track you have today.
Mr. Ehrlich commented he ran on that track.
I ran on that track in junior high school, so when it was cinders, as it is now.
So, I mean,
Probably the same
I'm just
cinders.
glad that the facilities and finance committees have been consistent in wanting to address this. It's clear that they have the best interest of the entire district at heart.
And this is, as Mr. Negrini indicated, this has been a long process. The Facilities Committee has done an excellent job in looking at this in every different fashion, and finance wanting to move forward with this, but in a fiscally responsible manner, which is why it frankly took a little bit longer than I think everybody would have hoped. But I think we're at a good place now, and I agree with Mr. Hopp's comments. I think this is long overdue, and it's time to do this for a variety of different reasons. So I think we have a motion and a second, unless there's other comments.
Mr. Negrini, second by Mrs. Reed.
Roll call.
Mrs. Reed. Yes. Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Dr. Shimeleski.
Yes.
Mr. Hart.
Yes.
Mr. Hop.
Yes.
Mr. Martin.
Yes.
Mr. Metzger. Mr. Negrini.
Yes.
Mr. Ehrlich. 9-4, none against.
Okay, under finance, 11.1 is request permission to submit the delinquent accounts to the Berks County Tax Claim Bureau as attached. 11.2 is request approval to award contracts for the purchase of fuel for the 2017-2018 school year through the Berks County Joint Purchasing. And 11.3 is request permission to accept the audit report from Herbine and Company, which we've just heard for the year ended June 30th, 2016. Do I have a motion? Dr. Chmielewski, second. Mr. Martin, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Dr. Shimeleski.
Yes.
Mr. Hart.
Yes.
Mr. Hop.
Yes.
Mr. Martin.
Yes.
Mr. Metzger. Mr. Negrini.
Yes.
Mrs. Reed.
Yes.
Mr. Ehrlich.
Yes.
9-4, none against.
Under curriculum 12, I think it should be 12.1. That's okay. We'll let you make one mistake. You don't get any more the rest of the school year.
Okay.
Request approval of the Wilson School District Comprehensive Plan, which July 2017 to June 30th, 2020 as attached. And also 12.2, request approval for the purchase of Plato courseware for the high school algebra standards pilot. Do I have a motion for approval? Dr. Chmielewski, second. Mr. Martin, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Dr. Shimeleski.
Yes.
Mr. Hart.
Yes.
Mr. Hop.
Yes.
Mr. Martin.
Yes.
Mr. Metzger.
Yes.
Mr. Negrini.
Yes.
Mrs. Reed.
Yes.
Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Mr. Ehrlich.
Yes.
9-4, none against.
And under child care, 15.1, request to approve the contract with Berkshire Systems Group for the relocation of a current data rack. I think that's it. Motion for approval. Dr. Chmielewski, second. Mr. Metzger, roll call, please.
Mr. Hart.
Yes.
Mr. Hop.
Yes.
Mr. Martin.
Yes.
Mr. Metzger.
Yes.
Mr. Negrini.
Yes.
Mrs. Reed.
Yes.
Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Dr. Shimeleski.
Yes.
Mr. Ehrlich.
Yes.
9-4, none against.
Under policies 17.1, we have the final reading of the open records policy and a second reading of the school volunteer policy. And we need to vote on 17.1, which is the final reading of the open records. Do I have a motion? And this would just be for the open records. Motion for approval of the open records policy. Mr. Negrini, second. Mr. Martin. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hop. Yes. Mr. Martin.
Yes.
Mr. Metzger.
Yes.
Mr. Negrini.
Yes.
Mrs. Reed.
Yes.
Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Dr. Shimeleski.
Yes.
Mr. Hart.
Yes.
Mr. Ehrlich.
Yes.
9-4, none against.
And 18.1, request approval of the resolution authorizing the Wilson School District to participate in the Berks County Joint Comprehensive Plan. Motion for approval. Mr. Metzger, second. Dr. Chmielewski, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin.
Yes.
Mr. Metzger.
Yes.
Mr. Negrini.
Yes.
Mrs. Reed.
Yes.
Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Dr. Shimeleski.
Yes.
Mr. Hart.
Yes.
Mr. Hop.
Yes.
Mr. Ehrlich.
Yes.
9 for, none against.
Committee reports, Berks Career and Technology.
JOC and BCTC does not meet during November. Our next scheduled meeting will be December 8th, 7 o'clock p.m. at our West Campus. It's Thursday there, I think, right? Yeah, Thursday the 8th, so beautiful. That is all.
Thank you. Berks County IU, Mrs. Reed.
The BCIU board is the governing board for Head Start. I wasn't sure everybody knew that, so I put that in. We talked about some of the things there. And the second thing is that the superintendents, assistant superintendents, and representatives from the IU went to the Hill to visit our senators' representatives. Here's a very nice picture. I believe our assistant superintendent was there, Cindy. And so it looks like they were very effective, hopefully. And that's the end of that report.
Thank you. Berks EIT, Christine, anything?
Next meeting is December 8th at 6 o'clock here in this room.
Okay. Curriculum Committee.
Okay, we had 3 basic presentations. The first one was Steve Rhodes and Tim Fick. I think this has been in the news a whole lot about the outdoor classroom. I do have it here in Berks Nature, News and Nature, and there's a very nice article on our outdoor classroom over there. So they talked about it and help from Berks Nature and funded with the $10,000 from Pennsylvania American Water plus community sponsors. So they intend to do a deck, a wildlife observation deck, perhaps with our students helping to build that. So that will be coming. The second one was Angela Misteifer, who went to training to coaching experience, and that was in New York City, and some of the information that was there, but they're saying basically that we need to create capacity in our teachers with coaching and continuous professional development so that they can get better at their skills. The third one was Rick Lappy, and he brought in the students. We saw them before they came in to present to us, Sarah Ronco and Jasper Den Otter. They then showed us their final thing. I believe when they came in to us, they were still looking for money, and they needed to increase their funding. Well, they got their funding of $17,000. They were paired with Mexican team. So there were 2 on our team, 5 of the Mexican students who of course spoke Spanish. Our students did not. So they had to do a lot through the interpreters, which made it more difficult for our students than some of the other ones. And it was kind of interesting what they did. I don't know if I wrote that in. But at any rate, they had to come out with a combined car. They had one from ours, one from theirs, and they kind of combined it, took the best of both, and came out with a new one. And the last thing had to do with new course changes. I'm not going to go through all of them. They are listed here. I would say there was really nothing major, a couple of additions, some name changes. Of course, virtual CP from the summer was brought over and now will be offered in the school year. AP capstone and seminar will now count as English credits, grades 11 and 12. And some, as I have listed, some new ones that are in there. And that's the end of my report. Thank
I
you.
just wanted to comment on the environmental study, or the ribbon cutting, which of course Steve and Tim picked up driving rainstorm to have it in. But I want to thank, we had a lot of community members and American Water who assisted in this. It really couldn't have been done without them. So I think this is a good example of where you can have some corporate partnerships that can help provide some educational experiences. And for when we were there, you could just see the kids and how excited they were to do this despite the rain. But really thank to our community partners.
And I think some of those community sponsors actually were people that helped do some of the digging and some of that kind of thing. So they got into the nitty-gritty of it, not just the funding, but the doing.
Right. So thank you. Extracurricular.
Just a brief but exciting update. Our football team is the only fall sport still participating with their win over Lower Dolphin last Friday. They qualified for the District 3 Championship, which they will be playing this Saturday at Hershey Park Stadium at 6 p.m. So hopefully we'll have some nice weather for that. And just as previously mentioned, our winter sports kicked off on Friday, kind of an odd date, but kicked off on Friday with tryouts and the start of our winter season. And that's all I have.
Facilities?
The next meeting is Tuesday, December 6th. Although I'm going to have to move the start time back. It's currently 4:30. Day after we'll probably move it back to 5:30.
Finance, as we mentioned earlier, we had a finance committee meeting earlier, right before the board meeting, which we had the presentation this evening, which covered that. Human resources?
No report.
Legislative?
Nothing really to report. Both parties have elected their new leaders to represent them come next year. Nothing's going to happen the rest of the year, and that's it.
As I was going to say, as opposed to everything that happened the other 10 months of the year. Couldn't Public relations and Education Foundation.
Although it did rain at the West ribbon cutting, we also had media come out for that event, and we had media turn out for the middle school career day that was held later that same week. I'm also working with our director of the Grandview Gallery. He's interested in trying to raise awareness of the gallery and promote it, so we're going to be working on that as well. For the foundation, recently completed our new year-end giving market piece, which will be mailed shortly. I'm currently working on our 2017 budget, prepping for our next board meeting, which will be held on December 2nd, and we're currently accepting venture grant applications. The deadline is November 30th. Thank you.
Thank you. Technology? Student outreach. Say you're not Emma.
Oh, no. Emma had a family commitment tonight, so I'm here speaking with you guys. I'm excited to be here. So Wilson, Leo Club, Interact Club, and Student Government all brought in supplies over the past week to give to Haiti for disaster relief. So this was a good opportunity for different Wilson clubs to get involved for a good cause. And tomorrow during our half day, we have a mini-thon assembly, and this is a way to promote our event and help students to become more aware of what's going to happen the next few months with Minithon. So all the captains will be there, and they will explain their positions and introduce themselves. And we will be having a guest speaker, Elizabeth Woldbridge, and her son is a 4 Diamonds child. His name is Seth, and she's going to explain her story and how the 4 Diamonds organization has impacted their family. And Wilson's theater company put on a show called Peter and the Starcatcher this past weekend, and some classes were able to go down during school day to see it, and all the students really enjoyed it, and it was a huge success. And Student Government will be working with Interact Club this holiday season to plan an event to go to Olivet's Boys and Girls Club in early December, and we're hoping to get gifts together and maybe do a craft or something with the kids there. And Student Government helped out with JROTC, and JROTC did another fantastic job with the vet ball this year, and the decorations and setup looked very nice, and all the veterans and their families really enjoyed the event. And that is all for my report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Speaking of the JROTC, the Wilson High School cheerleaders sponsored a cheerleading competition over the weekend
Here at Wilson, and I'm trying to figure out, is there an event that the junior ROTC doesn't go to? Because I wasn't expecting to see them working behind the concession stands, volunteering their time. It's unbelievable what they do. It truly is.
They represent the school district extremely, extremely well, I agree. And you see them everywhere, which is great. Our hat's always off to them. Thank you, Jason, for bringing that up. Is there any other business? Oops, sorry.
No report.
No report? I could never forget you. Any public participation on non-agenda items?
There's
Motion to adjourn. Dr. Chmielewski, second. Mr. Wolf, all those in favor?
Aye.
I scrolled down too.